I've done over 128 Airbnbs over the past 4 years. My name is Jenna Yee, and I am a professional Airbnb designer. Welcome to Design Review.
Scope that I didn't do on this project myself, and that is the electrical wiring of the house. Was to go wire this thing all up and burn it down. So I hired.
He did not want to quote unquote burn the house down. Obviously you don't want to burn your own personal house down, but like there is a liability issue when it comes to hospitality. I run a interior design coaching program for designers, and I have a client specifically in my cohort. She, Airbnb designer, Midwest, is dealing with an issue on the lake that she's actually designing around because one of the owners did a shortcut and did not follow the regulations, and instead the house actually burned down with guests in it. The entire family. It's not just your property. You are inviting people onto your property, which means that you have a responsibility that is different than just living in it in yourself. So that's just a great example of liability. Today we are checking out Devin Lorop. I hope I didn't butcher his last name. He's a professional Airbnb host, and he does these really cool build outs for tiny homes in the Pacific Northwest, and tiny homes are super popular. A really good way to make a lot of money in the Airbnb space. So let's see what he's up to.
Welcome back to another video, guys. This is the video everyone has been asking for, and that is how much the Cedar Hollow,
this design
square foot tiny home costs to
Huge
build.
fan.
Before we get into it, I do have to ask you
So
guys,
tiny homes are super popular right now. They are different than your average home. And right now Airbnb is oversaturated. So people are looking for something new and something unique. Tiny homes is the way to go because they immerse yourself in the forest and the mountains and the woods. Some people are actually getting super creative and buying like large plots of land and doing like this whole tiny home shared concept, but it's a way to capitalize on both uniqueness and guest experience is what this is. Because when you're coming out here to Pacific Northwest where he is, you're literally having nowhere else to go but these beautiful woods and these beautiful saunas and this beautiful house. And you don't have to buy an entire house. You just have to build something on a very small plot of land.
card statements, itemize everything out, and break it into categories.
Love this itemization.
You're going to want to stay tuned to the end of the video.
Every investor should have a budget. If you don't have a budget, never go into anything like this without a budget. His is amazing.
And I've also had hundreds of you reaching out asking, are you selling the Cedar Hollow construction plans?
Fair question.
The answer is yes, and you have to stay tuned towards the middle of this video to get a 60% off discount code on the plans for the first 100 of you.
So my understanding is he has a construction background, which is really nice. They can come into this.
The 600-foot long driveway and the parking
driveways are
pad here.
huge.
And that costs $4,119.55. Now I did this in a few states.
Undervalued driveways. The fact that he actually created a driveway and put this in the first phase, because a lot of people don't realize, like especially in these isolated areas, guests are driving up at all hours of the day, including the nighttime. So like actually having a driveway where people can access something like the woods is a huge, huge bonus.
Stages where I did a couple lifts of rock, where I did probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches of this 3/4 inch chip rock that you see here. And then at the very end of construction, I came back over with another 2-inch lift once the driveway had all settled down. That cost also includes chainsaw blades for dropping all the trees that were in the way, mini excavator rentals for pulling all the stumps out, regrading the driveway, and also bobcat rentals for actually laying all the mass amounts of rock throughout here. So you can see the driveway is quite long, and it did take a total of 45 yards of rock to gravel everything here. Now that I could actually get back to where the home's going to be built, we could start in on the post and pier foundation, and that costs $3,866.30.
Now, before we get into the foundation, the only thing I wish he would have done is, considering the gravel driveway is so long, is that he put a lot of work into something smooth. But again, if your guests come at night, one recommendation is solar lighting. Like you cannot discount the effect of solar lighting. So dropping some solar lights in those trees as you're driving up, or using solar lights to line that driveway, especially if it's 45 feet or 45 yards coming in. Like the woods are pitch black at night. So like before it comes into view, just drop some solar lights, super cheap on Amazon, makes a huge difference.
Both the home and the deck are supported by this post and pier foundation. So you essentially have a pier that goes 3-4 feet into the ground, an anchor, and then a post that supports everything on top of it. So that cost also includes the dingo rental that we use to dig the holes down into the ground, the sauna tube, the concrete, and then the anchors themselves. With the foundation done,
Solid
we could dive into the
construction
framing.
knowledge.
So the framing for the Cedar Hollow is a post and pier foundation. So we have 3 beams that run underneath the home, and all the floor joists that are 2x12 sit on top of that. There's 2x6s in the walls and 2x10s making up the ceiling pitch here. That cost $8,380.32. Framing out this home by myself was definitely a little bit tricky. These back walls are 12 foot tall, and I built this back wall in one solid piece, fully sheathed it on the ground.
I think this is an important thing to note is that with his construction background, he's actually doing the labor himself. So while he's breaking down all the cost, if you don't have this, one, it doesn't mean that you can't do a tiny home. It just means that you have to hire out the labor. I don't know if he's actually putting in his labor costs, because a lot of construction workers, if you were to hire this out by a contractor, they upsell their material costs to cover some of their labor costs. So he did not say whether or not his labor costs are actually factored into any of this, but from surface level, it just says material costs. So that's just something to keep in mind.
And then use 2x4s and wall jacks to slowly lift up the back wall.
That's a lot of work for one person.
Sorry, Mom. It was a very sketchy day. But we got it up and it's here and it looks great.
I like that he just called his mom out.
$4,869.31. And this is actually a 4x8 foot hardy board flat panel. So it doesn't look like it has that wood grain to it. And we went with board and batten. So these are also more hardy board products. So it's almost like a concrete board composite that I nailed to the whole side of the framing.
Super easy to do.
That's also baked into the price.
Doing this particular design, one, easy to execute, but it's also combining both modern and traditional elements. So like this is going to last for a while. This is not something that is so trendy that in just a decade from now, people are going to look at it and be like, oh, I would never stay there. This particular design, especially in the Pacific Northwest, is going to stay and have a lot of longevity.
Includes this cedar skirting that goes all the way around the home. Essentially what I did was I just framed down posts, put hardy board panels, and then I bought these 3-inch decking boards that go all the way around. I did this to help keep the climate in the crawl space above freezing, so that when we do get our few days where the property freezes out here, we don't have pipes bursting underneath the home. If this doesn't get your like, I don't know what will. So I'm underneath the Cedar Hollow right now, and this is the waste system, and it costs $671.71.
Which also is a great price considering, again, he's in the middle of the woods in the Pacific Northwest. Like, some of these places you're gonna go,
toilet,
like,
sinks,
it's gonna cost you a hot minute.
And once the float in there gets high enough, it kicks on a pump and it launches everything out to the Pacific Bins septic field, which I oversized the Pacific Bins septic system so that it could accommodate a second unit like this, so we're not overwhelmed.
Super great advice if you are buying an already made tiny home. Add what he's doing on your list to check off of things before you buy a pre-made
one. All the windows and sliding door that you see here, the front door, the 2 closet doors inside, and also the 2 doors to both the bedroom and the bathroom. The roof cost me $2,694.17. And that includes ice and water shield across the entire house. Typically, you just do it on the first 6 to 10 feet, but I ended up just doing it on the whole thing in case we had a branch fall and poke through a shingle. I just didn't want to have any sort of water problems. So then I also went with shingles all the way across this whole roof. That price includes 2 of these skylights here. Also includes both of these vent stack booths, which one of them is for the bathroom and the other one is for the kitchen. Which that actually surprised me a lot, seeing how cheap this roof came in at. I got a quote to do this whole roof in metal and it was about $10,000. And I figured if I'm doing this entire build by myself, I might as well learn to roof, and it's worked out great. We made it through a whole Washington winter and all the rainy springtime here, and we are.
So those skylights might seem like a splurge, but again, if you're in the middle of the woods and you are the guest that's in there, this is energy efficiency. So you're actually going to be able to have the light of the natural light play as a bonus for you, meaning that you're going to reduce your electrical cost over time, because electricity in a place like this is not going to be particularly cheap.
Knock on wood. Still waterproof. The crawl space was next at $1,274.08, and that includes this plastic vapor barrier that goes over the exposed earth, so you're not having vapor.
That's probably one of the prettiest crawl spaces I've ever seen. I used to flip, and crawl spaces are not fun.
Problems down the road. And that also
I don't even think he's
all
like
that solid
dirty
core foam
in
board
this.
that goes around the perimeter, as well as some house wrap for all of those boards that hang down that all the cladding is screwed to. Next up are these guys for $113.34, and those are mouse traps. So I do pest control underneath the whole home. Next up is my plumbing, and that costs $2,930.01. And that number blew me away because it included all of the faucets, so a kitchen faucet, sink faucet, the shower head here, all of the drain lines, all of the PEX water supply lines that supply water here, the hot water heater, my washer dryer, and all the rough into those, both the drain lines and the water supply, which blew my mind because I had paid a couple plumbers to do stuff both at the Pacific Bin before and just fixing miscellaneous things in the past. And it just showed me how much labor is baked into all of these crazy quotes I was getting.
just like we talked about before, he's saving so much on his own labor. The other thing too is when you hire a contractor, one of the biggest ways that I save when dealing with a contractor is I will, when they get their quote, I'll ask them to separate material cost from labor cost. And the material cost is where I am able to usually save anywhere from hundreds of thousands of dollars by resourcing them cheaper and oftentimes nicer, because your builder grade is pretty standard and the builder grade they've actually upselled. So like we don't know where he sourced like these black faucets, for example, but if they came from Home Depot, they would run around anywhere from $100 to $200. You can get the same exact one on Amazon, for example, 5-star rating, 4.5-star rating, and it's going to run around $30. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make cost and budget wise is going to those big box home improvement stores. You know the ones I'm talking about. Super convenient. Their cost of materials. So like things like lighting, things like faucets, things like mirrors, things like accessories, any of what we consider cosmetic upgrades, never source from those big box places. Instead, go to places like Amazon or work with an investor-friendly designer like ourselves who have those trade accounts or those sources where we can discount it even more, because again, those big box are kind of getting their upgrade, and their contractors, believe it or not, are probably sourcing from the big box ones too and not giving you the construction discount.
Only scope that I didn't do on this project myself, and that is the electrical wiring of the house.
I don't blame you.
Last thing I wanted to do was to go wire this thing all up and burn it down. So I hired an electrician to come in, and that cost me $12,722.75.
Notice the huge jump when he had to hire out, and it's the labor cost. So I love everything about this. I am jealous of his ability to do this, but just remember when you're talking about this build, he is able to do a lot of this and save on his own cost. And you'll notice that he did not want to quote unquote burn the house down. Obviously you don't want to burn your own personal house down, but like there is a liability issue when it comes to hospitality. So anything with Airbnb or VRBO hotel makeovers, there's a certain sense of responsibility that you have to your guest. So you want to make sure that things like electrical, even if you're just not doing a new build, but you're doing a flip or a renovation or just an improvement, all the people that are touching all those kind of things are licensed and insured for your own liability purposes as a host. I run a interior design coaching program for designers, and I have a client specifically in my cohort. She, Airbnb designer, Midwest, is dealing with an issue on the lake that she's actually designing around because one of the owners did a shortcut and did not follow the regulations, and instead the house actually burned down with guests in it, the entire family. So now they're having to go through all this hullabaloo in that same area, and everybody's affected because of this. So that's just a great example of liabilities and making sure that you uphold your fiduciary duty to your guests, because it's not just your property. You are inviting people onto your property, which means that you have a responsibility that is different than just living in it in yourself. And also, I own the first interior design franchise. So if you are interested in that, then make sure to follow, subscribe, like, or DM me. I also graduated from Seattle University School of Law. So my background when it comes to liabilities and things like this, I like to interject that whenever possible.
That cost includes getting the feeder lines coming off of our 400 amp service out here to the home, wiring this entire home, all the materials for the can lights up here, the LED strip lights in the kitchen, includes wiring up the breaker for the hot tub, the breaker for the cold plunge chiller, the sauna way out there in the forest, the Tesla charger, and just all those little extra amenities that come with the home. This next item, I blame you guys. When we named the Cedar Hollow this early on in construction, I had to go full on commit and do cedar everything. And these cedar soffits cost me $1,908.85.
But they're so pretty.
Just for a 2-foot perimeter going all the way around the home.
Love the lighting, the underlighting and all of this, because again, Pacific Northwest forests get really, really dark.
But it looks really cool. That number also includes these vents that you see at the front and the back of the home, and those are ultimately for getting airflow to pass alongside the underside of your roof, so you get proper ventilation and you don't get mold if condensation builds up over time. The
so smart, especially in a
installation
damp
cost me $2,318.58, and what that includes is R38 bat insulation, so that's those big rolls you see at the store, running in between all the floor joists here and also up in the rafters to insulate both underneath and up top at the roof. And then we have R21 in all the walls here. I also did put rock wool sound dampening insulation in between this wall here that divides the living room from the bedroom and bathroom, as well as the wall that divides the bedroom from the bathroom. Just because in tiny homes, you hear everything, and
so true.
I'm just imagining someone on their first date here and someone's not wanting to wreak havoc over there in the bathroom because they're afraid it's gonna echo through. Then how I heat.
Talk about guest experience. The fact that he even paid attention to this little detail is huge. And this little detail is applicable not just in tiny homes, because if you're an investor and you are trying to do something in a normal home, I can't tell you the amount of times I've gone into an Airbnb and I've seen those barn sliding doors come across a bathroom, and those barn sliding doors don't actually close off anything. So they don't prevent sound and they don't prevent smell. So like, the idea that he has actually taken into account the guest experience in this is huge, and it is also a really key takeaway for like all other Airbnbs.
And cool this place. I actually went with a Mr. Cool mini split 120 volt head unit. So we have a head unit here and there's a condenser outside the home, and it does a fantastic job at both heating and cooling the home and removing condensation from the home.
And let's pay attention to where he's actually placed that. He has not placed that in some obscure place on some wall, like randomly somewhere that's going to prevent anything else. The amount of times I've gone into a room and the HVAC system has been in like the worst possible place where I can't put a bed because it's the most natural place to put a bed, or can't put a piece of art. No, this is up and out of the way and high up on the wall so it can address airflow. Huge, huge bonus points. Love this.
With tiny homes, when you take showers, it can get humid in here, so it does a really good job keeping this entire place in a comfortable state. On the note of HVAC, that price does also include ventilation fans. So I actually have 2 exhaust fans in the bathroom, one in the main ceiling area and one over the washer dryer area that are able to pull out humid air and just keep air changes happening.
That
in the
washer
home.
dryer is
I also
so
have
efficiently done.
This little fan right
space-wise.
up here, which takes the acclimated air from the living room area and pushes it into the bedroom, which ventilation is huge. So many people fail to do it properly on tiny homes. My next biggest expense was the drywall, and that was $1,803.83, which everyone I talked to said, don't do the drywall yourself. It's gonna look horrible. Like, just hire a professional. But my stubborn self, wanting to do this whole thing myself, gave it a crack, and honestly, it turned out great.
He also has construction
had to do
experience.
A few more coats of mud than what a normal
Don't do the
drywaller
drywall
would
yourself
have to do.
if you've never done it.
But I'm really proud of how this looks. I won't lie.
He did a great job.
This wall was very hard, and I spent a lot of time getting all of this
Yeah, I would
right.
think so.
Before we get to my
Windows are
largest
gorgeous,
expense,
though.
I'm excited to be announcing that I am officially selling the Cedar Hollow's construction plans. They're on my website. If you go to
As he should. These are fantastic
/plans.
So user-friendly, so attractive.
Hey there, so my name's Garen. I'm actually her marketing strategist, and I've built a YouTube channel of 180,000 subscribers. I've been doing YouTube and marketing for the past 18 years, and I had to jump in here because I really love that he is selling his plans from a business strategy and marketing perspective. What he's doing is basically increasing his ROI and profit margins on this property, and he's going to be able to pay it off faster and build his business and his platform quicker because he's doing this. So I really love this as a business piece.
For sure. It's the whole business of hospitality. So he's getting both business, plus now that this is out there, everybody wants to go actually stay in this.
R60, you'll get 60% off that set of plans. So that knocks it down to just over $500. And this is a full set of structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing plans. And I even went through the extra
And
legwork
actually,
of having 2 foundation.
That is a lot of copy. Even if you don't have construction experience and you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, that's an added benefit. He can do this. Like, there are ways where you can do upsells in your own properties, even if you don't have this background, that increases your ROI as long as you have the business mindset. Again, this is not your personal property. This is your business. Check out my videos about upsells and how to increase your ROI.
Designs plan, both a post and pier foundation like what my version of the Cedar Hollow has, but I also had a more traditional footing and stem wall foundation designed for those of you that want to have
I like
a
that he
little
used the
variability
same
in your
cedar
foundation
and the
design.
same wood and the same
$500
stain
for
throughout
this
all
set
of
that
it.
cost me over $8,000 is well worth it, even if you're just looking to get a little design inspiration and understand how to correctly build
I
a
think
tiny
100%
home.
live in
There are
this
honestly
for the rest
so
of my
many
life.
scams out there for tiny homes where you go buy a set of plans for $1,000 and it's just like this crappy floor plan. This set of of plans is exactly how I built this real home behind me, and I know it can help you guys out a ton if you're interested.
This guy's,
I wonder what his background was.
Also, if you purchase
this
the
guy's
plans,
thorough
I'm currently
through
in the
and
process
through.
of building this
Like,
home
he's really
exactly for another client.
The
here in
attention to
Washington.
detail is awesome.
Walking you through each individual step, super detailed, so you could essentially purchase the construction.
This is exactly
plans,
how you stand
follow
out
along,
from the
watch all
competition and what you're
videos,
doing.
watch everything come
Oh
to
yeah,
life. Be
there's
sure
not
to go
another
to
person doing this.
pacificbend.com/plans. Click on the
There's a lot of
Cedar
people doing
Hollow
tiny
and check
homes,
out
but this
use code
level of
Cedar
like
60
from
to
the
get
ground up.
60% off. Even if you guys do pop on the site and enter the code Cedar60 and all the coupons are sold out, be sure to email me info@thepacificbend.com and I'm sure I can work something out for you. And if you are interested in building this home as a short-term rental, you're going to want to stay tuned to the end of the video where I reveal exactly how much this home is making in the first couple months it's been rented, and I think it's going to surprise you. Next up was
where's that?
oh so expensive
At the end of the video.
cedar wood ceilings, and these came in at $3,539.96.
Totally
And that's
worth
both here
it,
in the
though.
living room, kitchen
Like,
area, and the bedroom over there.
Such
the
a
entire
focal
paint
point.
budget came in at $2,455.88.
Not bad.
And on the entire interior of the home, I used Sherwin-Williams Alabaster White, which so many of you that have stayed here have asked, like, what is that white color? It's the perfect balance. It's not too cool. It's not too warm.
Now, I will
and it
say
looks
my
so
go-to
good with natural light
is,
pouring into the home. And then
Sherwin-Williams untinted base, only because then you never have to worry about color matching if you have a high influx of people in your property.
What color matching? What do you mean? How does that work?
So like, especially like whites, because not all whites are the same. So like some are yellow, some are like he's talking about, some are cooler, some are warm. So if you get the wrong white and you paint it on there, then you have to repaint the entire wall because you did the wrong white. But if you just do an untinted base, you literally never have to match the color.
for the color on the outside of the home, I went with Tricorn Black. It's another
Which is one of my
Sherwin-Williams
favorite
color,
blacks, by
and
the
I
way.
go with a flat finish on that. And then for $2,806.85 are these real 3/4 inch birch wood floors, and this is not comfortable to sit in. So that includes the real 3/4
As a video and
inch birch
photography guy, I
wood
love the
flooring,
lights that he
all
did
the
here
nails
too.
that I
A lot of
mixed
people
in with, and
don't
all
think
the
about
glue that
lighting
works as
and
the vapor
shadowing,
barrier
but it
between
really
the
adds a lot of
subdecking
depth
and
to,
actual
especially to a
wood itself.
tiny
The kitchen cost
400
me
square foot place that you've got here.
Yeah, all those backlights,
$1,757,
all
and that's
those
for a
underlights.
full service kitchen here, right? We got the oven, stovetop, microwave.
Yeah, a lot of people are
dishwasher,
tempted
sink,
to cut the
everything
kitchen
you need
short
in
in a tiny
normal
home.
kitchen, and I lived here for a few months, and it was
And-
super
After-
comfortable, and the space.
After working with you, I feel like the backsplash can be more bold, but like, that's only because I worked with you. My first job with her, we walk into a Kentucky Derby Airbnb in Frankfort,
yeah.
Kentucky, and she's like, "We're gonna do a emerald green tile fireplace." What?
That was literally everybody's reaction, except for my assistant designer. She was like, okay.
Yeah, here's a picture of what it looked like. It turned out amazing, and I'm like, I'm just gonna shut up. Like, you've obviously done this hundreds of times.
But I get why he did this. He's going for the Scandinavian look.
Yeah.
The only thing, and this is just a personal thing, is because he was so consistent on all the other wood. I don't like the light wood kitchen in relation to all the other wood, but I also see that he didn't want to do the same color wood and everything. So like, I get it.
Yeah, it's not bad. It still looks good.
Yeah, it looks so good.
It just works really, really well. I have another video, I'll pin it right here, that breaks down everything that goes into this kitchen. It's a super, super detailed breakdown. It has
Very
spreadsheets
efficient kitchen.
If you wanted to order
Like-
this kitchen exactly, but I'll link
Because
that to you
again,
right here.
isolation,
Apple TV, the
there's
Apple
nobody
HomePod
eating
and
out,
TV itself, all
going to grocery shop, probably only have a convenience store within a few minutes drive if they're lucky. So like making sure to have a full working kitchen that people can bring their groceries in, super important. And the coffee, always coffee, always coffee.
Yeah, having bad coffee, it's one of the worst things.
It's like-
being in an Airbnb.
It is, waking up and not having like,
$898.46. The bathroom floors cost $1,146.94, and the only reason I'm laying on them right now is because they're
You did
heated
that.
floors, and this feels really good actually.
I like that
But
he's-
that's also why they cost
as
so
a video
much.
guy, I
The
like that
heating
he's
coils run
not
all
doing
underneath
boring
here.
shots.
There's a thermostat where you
yeah,
can control
yeah.
how
I didn't even
hot
realize, I
it
didn't
is.
think about it until
Who
you just
wants to
pointed
do
it out,
their
for
thing in the
sure.
morning?
Yeah.
Cold.
How many
Yeah.
people are
This
going to get on the
large
floor and
tile
take a
shower
shot like
costs
that?
$3,771.57. So that includes this huge 9-foot tall glass door, all of the cement board that goes directly onto the wood studs here, as well as all the cement that I fill in the joints with, red guarding the entire shower,
He's so cute
as
doing
well
the
as
shower.
tiling and grouting this
What's your
entire
opinion
shower.
on shower heads? Because I personally don't like those, but is there any like rule of functionality or?
I go back and forth. as someone with a lot of hair, these used to not be the norm. We had an entire like time period in the 90s and the early 2000s where the design was like that double layered shower head where you could like pull it off and do whatever. Then waterfall shower heads came out, and that was like the newest luxury, so everybody went out and did them. If we go back to the sourcing, like this is considered a luxury. It's great, but it's not great if you don't have water pressure. Like if you put a shower head,
that's what I hate about
and you have terrible water pressure, then like for me, it takes like I might as well just go dunk my head in the toilet to wash my hair. Like it's terrible. He did his own water, so I'm sure his water pressure is great. The way you also get around that is they now have going back to the dual shower heads, but they have the overhead like waterfall, but then right in front of you, you can switch it from the rainfall shower head to like your normal shower head that has a higher pressure. And that way you never have any issues between pleasing somebody.
Yeah, I always end up using those.
All the furniture in the home
Good catch
costs
on that.
$10,070.05, and that includes the Stuma couch here, the dining room table.
So this is my
frame
only
for the
like
bedroom.
qualm when it comes to his design is that he spent so much time on all the details of the house that the furnishings themselves are a little bit lackluster. I see where he's going for simplicity, Scandinavian sake, but having lived in the Pacific Northwest, it can get really wet, it can get really muddy, and you can be extremely dirty. So especially if someone's like a hiker or they plan on spending a lot of time outside, all of those light colors concern me a little bit as far as maintenance and cleaning. I have used light color couches where you just Scotch guard the crap out of them, but because this is an isolated area, anything that you have to replace has to get back out to the isolated area. So I think like a leather couch would have been a more functional piece of furniture to put instead of that.
All the shelving in the closets cost me $237.14. All of the trim, both the trim along all the floorboards and the trim that lines all
Same
the
with that light
ceilings
color
cost me
carpet. Like I just think of like
$670.96. My
shoes
Tesla
being
charger
trapped
cost me $500, which, pro tip, if you're buying a Tesla charger or the NACS, North American Charging Standard charger, make sure to go on Facebook Marketplace. Tesla just ended their referral program, and a bunch of people had leftover referral points, and they ended up just purchasing a lot of these, so you can find them a lot cheaper than that. My second biggest expense was $16,464.17, and that is the 740 square foot deck.
money well spent.
Now this deck is really what
gorgeous.
makes the
Yeah.
Cedar Hollow, because it adds so much more outdoor space. And honestly, guess
Like I would be that person in the
they
morning
just
with my
spend
coffee
the
walking that
time on
entire
the deck.
thing
That price
to
also
get to the
does
sauna.
One of the nuances too that people don't think about is he used cable railing. So when you're in the house looking through, you can see there's almost no obstruction to seeing the nature. Putting up like a slat or some kind of wood thing would take away from the fact that you're in nature and you're staying at this property to be in nature.
Include all of the post and pier foundations, all the posts, all the framing, the joist tape that goes on top of all the floor joists, all the cedar decking, the sealer to seal the cedar decking. It was just a mass amount of lumber, concrete, anchors to get this whole thing put together, but I love how it looks.
Yeah,
These cable
worth every
railings
penny.
cost me $10,271.15. What I love about these cable railings is that even when you're sitting inside the house or if you're walking on any of the pads out here, you can see through all these cables, especially at nighttime. It's like they're not even there. So it just makes you feel totally immersed.
Well, and he didn't need this for
Here is my
uplighting, but
largest
another
expense, coming in
tip
at
is the
$17,000.
like railing. People forget to put solar, like if you have wood railing in a forest home, is to put the solar lighting like on the rails or going up the stairs, because like that level of having safety and that extra level of lighting and ambiance is like just one of those little touches that guests are like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Oh yeah, I definitely have busted my ass in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg at night up in the hills.
$724.40. This thing is like the price of a car, pretty much.
Okay, let's talk about amenities and hot tub. And
That's a expensive hot tub. That is like, that should fly for that price. Your average hot tub should run between 6 and 7, including install, and that's including in places like in Tennessee and Gatlinburg, like Garen was talking about, or even also in places that we've done like in the middle of the Colorado mountains. So to go, what did he say that was? 17,000? He says that he splurged on this like trifecta of all these things, but like at a certain point, unless your guest is a hot tub expert, like they're not going to know the difference between like 7 jets and 20 jets. Like a hot tub is just a hot tub. So like he probably could have saved.
You know what?
cost.
I know what I bet he was thinking. Actually, I know this is exactly what he's thinking. He knew he could splurge on something because he's going to revenue off of selling those plans. So he probably more than covered whatever the extra expensive was on this, and he probably was just thinking from a business perspective, I'm going to do something with this extra like 10 grand to go over the top because he's got better profit margins than his
Probably.
competition.
Like, I could see that, but also at the end of the day, a hot tub will bring you an increase in nightly rate. A 20 jet hot tub is not going to bring you a difference between having a hot tub and a 20 jet hot tub.
This is my jacuzzi 7-person hot tub, and you're gonna be like, wait, this is just a 2-person getaway. I know, 2-person hot tubs are just, they look kind of weird, and I just
They do,
Nah,
and it's
yeah.
fair,
figure,
valid.
why not go
Unless you
big?
get the individual
We went
cedar
all out
ones,
with
but then you're not
the
having fun
hot
as a
tub,
group. So
Which, if I'm getting any more hot tubs moving forward for short-term rentals, these jacuzzi ones are so nice, both from a maintenance perspective and like the massaging in the tub. You have little selectors where you can change if the jets are aerated or not
You say
aerated.
it's salt water?
It's super bougie, but is it worth $17,000? I don't really know. I even got this
No,
tub at a
it's
discount
not.
because there was this little blemish right there, and that knocked
You got a disc-
$4,000 off
It was
the purchase price.
20
and then
what
for
that-
$5,168.90, we
you
have
can
the
go to
Redwood
Wayfair
Outdoors
and get a really
Cedar
solid hot
Barrel
tub for about a third of that price.
cold plunge. This thing is amazing. So there's a chiller that
So
comes
smart,
with it,
though.
and it
I'd
plugs
love
into
that.
these two
Yes,
ports here.
to play on the
and it can
both,
get the
and like,
temperatures down to
especially in the
34
Pacific Northwest,
degrees.
where
It
like
is
a lot of people
neat.
are health conscious up there. Like, there's, again, I went to school in Seattle, so like we have this term up there called the granola cruncher, and there's a huge movement on both the health and adventure side between like the hot tubs and the cold plunges together. So smart. That is worth the extra cost. The 20 jet hot tub when you could just have a regular hot tub and sauna. I don't know.
Nearly ice cold. Then for $7,917.80, we have the
pretty.
Redwood Outdoors Barrel Sauna, which this
I love
sauna is
the
a guest
back window.
favorite and my
I know,
personal
it's gorgeous.
favorite. It just completes the spa-like features of this home, right? You got the cold plunge. to
The
jump
only
back
thing
and
that I don't
forth
like
in,
from a
you got the
function
hot tub when
standpoint
you're
is the
just looking
fact
to
that the
relax,
cold
and
plunge
sauna
and
when
the
you're looking to
sauna are
sweat out
so
a
far
little
apart
bit.
from each
This
other
thing
because you're going to
is
get out of that
amazing.
sauna
Also,
depending
Be
on
running.
what season you're
They
in.
have a
It's
couple
going to
hundred feet of
suck.
string lights hanging all across the backyard area over the sauna for $421.35.
Do you think that's enough lighting for, I can see myself running down that.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it is so dark and that the cabin is so lit up, you're probably fine because he did such a good job with the windows and the lights on the inside. That's probably fine. But do I always advocate for more solar lighting in the trees and on the pathways? Absolutely, because I don't think you can have enough. The value is underestimated.
Guys don't understand how hard I work to get these things up. Trying to get an
Oh, I'm
extension ladder
sure.
through all this to go climb that tree and screw it in while it was freezing cold in the winter was miserable.
Climb many
Then
a
for
tree to put those up.
$1,420.69 are all the outdoor seating, both here, the little side table, the fire pit itself, the actual basin, as well as all the chairs surrounding. I also had one miscellaneous item in there for $837.
Also notice that he put
with
the
just
fire
random
pit
tools that
far
came
enough
out
away
that I
from the
had to
house.
purchase.
That's
With
a
the
mistake
Pacific
that some
bin,
investors
number
do,
was
is they put it too close if you're doing like actual wood burning. I don't suggest to do wood burning on your normal everyday house. I suggest gas because you can't trust people, but like you're not going to do gas for replacement out here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
like $20,000 because I didn't have any tools, but it was nice with this build that I had all the tools. How much does the Cedar Hollow cost to build? And that is $161,389.41.
What do you think it would be if you contracted all that out?
At 161,
He said, what was it, 358 square feet?
you're probably, if you're including like the excavation cost for everything in the driveway and the roots and all that stuff, you're probably doubling that for the labor.
$41
To get out there.
turnkey, ready to live in. That's a fully stocked kitchen.
We've
everything
done
ready to
a
go, which,
renovation
considering
for a
inflation
cabin
and
out at
everything
the
that's
base of Mount Rainier in that area. So getting contractors and laborers out there just because they're not living on site, they have to travel and their costs, so they're up. Like it can be expensive.
happened in the last couple of years, I am ecstatic with that price. That is incredible for what you're getting. Plus, if you were to back out all the fancy stuff, the expansive deck, the hot tub, the cold plunge, the sauna, all of that it gets a total build cost for just the structure itself to $83,000, or a cost per square foot.
But that's
here
actually
in
a really good
Sultan,
point.
Washington.
So like
And
if
these
you're
numbers
taking
are-
away, so half of his cost was all the extras. So you only had 161,000, you had to hire this out, for example, you didn't have 320. You would start with the hot tub, that wasn't $17,000. You start with the hot tub, that's $7,000, and then you'd phase out your amenities. So your next level of an amenity is going to be your sauna. And then your next one is your phase and so you just add on to it.
So for first phase, for build and launch, what would be the most important amenity?
I would say the hot tub because, either one. It's either going to be your hot tub or your sauna. In this case, it's going to be depending on your budget. So
And then cold plunge last?
And cold plunge
'cause
last.
That's a niche thing.
Yeah. I honestly would go with the sauna first, but pull the sauna closer inside and then just leave room for a hot tub.
Hot off the press. For March, it made $7,510, which the home was only partially rented out. I was having some creators come through the house,
Nice,
create
smart.
some content, and really
Social
just
media.
blast this build out to the public. Then April, we came in a little bit higher at $8,644. May was a big month at $12,002. And then June, so far, that's when we're filming this, June is booked out for $15,603, which means in less than a year, this entire thing will have paid for itself.
I
So if you guys
would
aren't
be
interested in
curious to
purchasing Cedar
see
Hollow
what
plans, it's
his
the link at the top.
booking rate is. So like his June booking cost, is that just over the weekends? Is he booked out like 90% like during the week? So I'd just be curious to see like what he is pulling in and why.
Oh yeah, and he's selling this plans for $1,300. He's definitely at minimum done $10,000 off of these sales.
Oh,
he's
sure,
probably done more like 30 in the first year,
Yeah.
if not 50. So this is phenomenal from a marketing and business perspective, on top of just the straight cash flow. So, what would saving 10 grand on the hot tub? What would you throw that 10 grand into?
More lighting.
Lighting, really?
Yes, I think so like driveway lighting, because we didn't see past the driveway. So I'm going to assume just from experience in those mountains, like you only hit a certain point and then it's not till you round a curve that you see the uplighting from the cabin. So, but let's just say the electric goes out and you've got no lighting in the cabin and you're only relying on the solar light, like being able to light the driveway, light the trees, like that. And again, like you said, pathways, like it's just an underestimated. And then I would have spent more on the furnishings. I would have gone leather for the couch. I would not have done light colored rugs, because you have to think about the wear and tear for your cleaners. So you want to make things easy for your cleaners, and then knowing that you can't trust guests to treat a property the way you treat a property.
So you're gonna have increased cleaning costs too on the white stuff.
Correct. You just expect people to use the outdoors there. So if you're attracting those type of people, be prepared to host those type of people. So like shoe racks, I didn't see a shoe rack, or a boot mat, things like that, or like an extra would have been like a boot warmer. So like if you're getting wet hiking, like being able to encourage people to take off their shoes instead of track mud in the house, kind of thing. Like those type of little things, I think would help with the maintenance of the property, and then would have cost less than that extra 10 grand on his hot tub.
Okay. Overall, though, it's a beautiful
gorgeous.
house. I would
Yeah.
love to stay here.
100%. So this has been Design Reviews. Hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something. Stay tuned for our next one. And if you are interested in being an Airbnb designer, hit me up on Instagram, DM me designs, and let's talk.